People are gifted for ministry at their conversion.
It's going to be somebody who looks like you people that's going to fulfill the Great Commission.
Church is a who, not a what.
And it's not about us, it's about the Lord.
The biggest thing going on in the North American church right now is the shift of scorecard in ministry. As we come out of the church business and into the kingdom business, we don't have metrics to support that shift. All of our metrics are church-centric. What's going on at church? How many people show up on Sunday? How much money did they bring with them? You know, how busy are they at church? It's all been shrink-wrapped down to a church and a congregational scorecard. Kingdom scorecard is very different from that. Sometimes we don't know what's going on because kingdom metrics tend to outlive our one life. And yet there are some things that we can begin to celebrate differently in terms of community engagement. Are we making a difference in the neighborhoods where our churches are? Are we partnering with other congregations so that the neighborhood experiences the body of Christ where we live? Are graduation rates going up? Are hunger rates among kids going down? How many kids are getting out of elementary school reading at a 4th grade level, which is a huge social indicator? Those are all kingdom metrics that quite honestly are going to require probably a generation to figure out. But I'm encouraged because I see church leaders that have the courage to begin to think in those terms. So in my estimation, shifting the scorecard and even the game that we're about is the biggest thing going on right now in North America. And I think the leadership challenge is, how do you lead a movement? It's very different from leading an institution, managing an institution. We know how to manage the church. The problem is we know how to manage the church. And because we manage the church, we again have shrink-wrapped the vision of what God is up to in the world down to our corner of 3rd and Main. But leading a movement, a street movement, puts us right back in the book of Acts, puts us right back in the first centuries where the church was a street movement primarily until we domesticated it, threw a net over it, put it on the corner, built brick around it and said, this is church. And so we have, it's a considerable challenge for us to shift our mindset into thinking like missionaries, thinking like movement leaders as opposed to institutional managers. You know, the shift from a program-driven culture to a people development agenda is probably the most difficult single shift that leaders have to make, because we know how to do programs, we know how to measure programs. We think that the health of our programs equates into the health of our people, when in fact we can burn people up to make our program successful and think we've done something, when in fact we've got this long line of broken people and used up people behind us. But because we've been brought up in a program-driven culture, it's very difficult for us to shift that mentality and think, you know, how do we start on the people side of this? What do people need? What are people issues? And then use our programs. I'm not program allergic. It's just that, you know, it depends on what's the point. And the point in a people development culture is, are we turning out great people? For instance, I ask leaders all the time, you know, how many better marriages do you have in your congregation than you did last year? You know, and they look at me like, why? You know, or how many people have better relationship with their kids? How many people feel less in bondage to mammon? And they're looking, and they say, well, we don't know that. Well, of course not, because we don't ask that. You know, we only ask program, you know, participation metrics rather than life maturation metrics. And I can tell you that everyone who's married and has kids and is dealing with finances has those kinds of things on their brain. Not, you know, that's what they go to sleep with or wake up with in the morning. So it seems to me, until we align our goals with their goals, we're just kind of continuing to view them primarily as resources to get the program done, as opposed to the other way around. A lot of times I'm asked the question, what kind of tools or resources do we have for a new scorecard? And my reply to that is, unfortunately or fortunately, there is no template for this. I use a resource reallocation mode of recrafting or reshaping the scorecard. And which involves then how do we reallocate prayer and time and money and people and resource, technology, facilities, those kinds of things, into helping us measure an external focus rather than just an internal focus. One of the great questions I get is how long does this take to transition? And I'm a little nervous to tell you because this will sound like a death sentence to many people, but it's a 4 to 6 year process to really shift and transition into missional engagement from a program-driven, attractional model of church. And it doesn't mean we have to wait 4 to 6 years to see results. It just takes that long to pull off a culture shift.